All right, today is a design space day. So we're going to be creating the little treat jar, and we're going to be doing print then cut. So we are going to learn how to create print then cut images. Today we're just going to be creating in design space. All right, so we're going to pop over to design space. We're going to go over our terms to know in the notes first. All right. Hi, Amy. You made it. We just got started. We're doing terms to know. So last week we talked about score lines, so I'm not going to cover that a whole lot. You just have to remember that when the score lines show up, you're going to see the image as a with both the word score and the word cut. All right. So for example, when this one pops in, you see the score lines and you see the cut lines, and they are attached. So just remember, score lines are almost just a separate image, but they do have to be attached to whatever they are scoring. If they're not attached, it will not score the material that you want scored. Okay. We're going to talk about rotate. Today we're going to be doing some rotating of images. So I'm just going to bring in a little heart here. You have two options for rotating. You can either go to, you have this wonderful bounding box. That's what it's called if you want to know the official term. The bounding box around the image has a little rotate icon, and you can literally just drag it around and it will rotate. And then the bounding box will snap back to its original position where the rotating icon is up in the upper right-hand corner, and you can just keep rotating. All right. If you know the exact degree you want to rotate, you can go up to the edit bar, and under the word rotate, you can type in 90 if you want it rotating 90 degrees. You can type in 180. You can type in 270. And you can type in 360. You can type in 45. Basically, whatever rotation you want it, you can rotate it. Now, just know that even if you've rotated it here in the project, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be rotated when you hit make it. It's automatically just going to go to the position that is the paper saving position on the mat. If you are wanting it to be a specific rotation, you either have to slice or attach it in place. So let's say that we're creating a stencil where we've made these little hearts and we've rotated them and we want them to be exactly in this position. We're going to have to grab all three of those. We're going to have to attach them together. And now when I click make it, they are rotated and positioned exactly how I had them on the mat. Okay. So just know that if you've rotated something to a specific position, you do have to attach it or slice it out of something or that kind of thing so that it stays in that rotated position. Okay. All right. So print then cut. The tag is a print and cut image. So I put white cardstock in my printer and it printed the little sentiment, my favorite piece inside. My favorite place is inside your hug. Okay, this is actually printed on here. And then I placed that piece of cardstock onto my Cricut mat and it cut out the tag image. Okay, I do this. Where is it? When I create my water bottles and my coffee mugs that I sell, I have a little printed tag that goes on them with the care instructions. And this was done on my Cricut. It's print then cut. There we go. All right. All right. So print then cut. You can convert any image or text into a printable image. All right, and you can do this by changing it to line. You can change the line type, or you can flatten it. So there are two ways to change an image into a printable image. And I'm going to pop in some text here so you can see what happens with your print and cut. All right, okay. So right now, all of my images are actual images. These letters, if you look in the layers panel, are going to be cut images. These are going to be drawn. And this, you can see all the little Donald Duck layers over there in the layers panel are all going to be cut out individually, and I have to assemble them. All right. All right. So you can either convert it to printable by changing the line type, or you can convert it to printable by using the flatten tool. Now in the image library, I'm going to go back to that real quick. There are actual images that are already print and cut. So if you go down to, where is it? They changed it. They did a recent update and I was having a hard time finding things the other day. There it is. So under operation type, it says print then cut. So there are already images in the Design Space library that are just print and cut images. And you can see right here under that image, whoops, it says print then cut. So it has already been designed as a print and cut image. It will print on your printer and then it will cut around it and create this adorable little sticker, okay? And you can print and cut on anything you can print on. Label material, sticker paper, cardstock, regular paper. So anything you can print on, you can do print and cut with, all right? So I'm going to pop this print and cut image in just so we can take a look at the difference. So you can see when this print and cut image comes in, it is showing up as a single layer, and it says it's a cut and a print. Whereas the Donald Duck is a multi-layer image, the text is a draw, and this text is a single image, okay? So if I want to change it to a print then cut image, this one's, I don't have to worry about it, it's already done for me. With the text, I can go in and I can change the line type. So you see right here, it says line type, it says cut, okay? Over next to that is the word fill. And when I click on that down arrow, it says print. So when I change it to a print, over here in the layers panel, it now says cut and print. So when I go to hit make it, there is my ABCD that's going to print, and then it's going to cut out each one of these individual letters. All right. So then it's going to also cut around the little cloud in the sun. It is not cutting where the black line is. This black line, excuse me, this black line is actually a border that your Cricut machine reads to know where your images are at so that it knows where to cut. Okay, and you do have to calibrate. We're going to talk about calibrating here in a minute. All right, but it will, you see where this little cloud, it's really hard to see, but you can see where that little cloud has the white outline. That's actually where it's going to cut. It's going to cut around this. The letters, it's actually going to cut around the individual letters. All right. So all I did with the letters, because I wanted them to be individual images that were cut, I just went up to fill and I changed the line type to print. Okay. Now, when it comes to the writing ones, you really don't want to change this to a, if you change it to a print, it's going to make a mess. Okay. And I will tell you what happens. What happens is it will print out these beautiful thin little letters, and then your machine will attempt to cut around those skinny little tiny little lines. And you're just going to end up with these little thin slits in your paper. It won't work. Okay. So when it comes to writing, You honestly just either have to write it, or you go to flatten, and when you flatten it, that's when you're going to get what I got with my tag. It actually, here, it will actually then cut around all of the little letters. Okay. And you do have to put those writing images onto something. So like the tag or a rectangle or something, so that it knows what to cut around. You can't just cut those little writing letters like that. But if you want this writing font onto something, then we would put it onto a square. Come on, it's just not wanting to play nice. There it goes. I would attach these two together just like we did with what we're going to do with the tag tonight. And then what it'll do is it'll print the letters, it'll print the colored tag, and then it'll cut around the tag. All right. I'll walk you through that a little bit better when we do our actual tag tonight. I did want to show you though what you're going to do with like the Disney-esque images. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this. So just like the letters, if I were to go to fill and I were to hit print, you're going to see over here in the layers panel, if you take a look, it says now his bill is cut and print. His little eyes are cut and print. His face is cut then print. His hat is cut then print. So it's going to print these, but it's just going to cut out these individual images, which defeats the purpose of us doing print then cut. Okay, we were going to do print then cut so that all it does is cut out the whole Donald Duck for us. So I'm going to undo this so that I have an image again. And right now it's all cut images again. What I want to use instead is flatten. So down in the lower right corner of your layers panel, there's the word flatten. Now when I click the flatten button, you can see in the layers panel, it is now showing Donald Duck as one entire image, and he is a cut, then print. So when I go to make it, you can see the little Donald Duck now is a single image, and it's going to cut around that Donald Duck. And now I've created a little Donald Duck sticker. Okay. So there's a difference between the print in the fill and the difference between the print where you flatten. And we'll go over a couple of other things you need to know about print and cut. You do need to calibrate. So you'll go over to these little hamburger lines, the 3 lines for your menu. You go down to calibration, and you're going to hit print, then cut, and it's going to walk you through how to calibrate your machine to your printer. So then you're going to choose the printer that you're going to use. You click print, and it's going to print a series of lines. Like I said, I don't have these. I could probably text my husband to go bring them up to me. But it's going to print like a series of gridded lines. Okay. And then you hit continue. It's going to say place the sheet on the mat. So you place your sheet on the mat exactly how it's shown. And you can see here, this is exactly what's going to print for you. It's going to have a series of numbers and a series of letters, and then a couple of little boxes. So you're going to choose whatever machine that you're trying to calibrate. And then it's going to make some cut lines on letters, and it's going to make cut lines on the numbers. And then it's going to ask you which one did it cut close to. And so it's going to have you do this about 3 or 4 times until it is exactly on the cut line and exactly on the square and exactly on the rectangle. And once it's saying my machine's not connected. Once you have it all calibrated where it's cutting on the perfect cut line and it's cutting exactly on that square, now your machine is calibrated to your printer. Now, if you ever buy a new printer or a new machine, you do have to recalibrate, okay? But you only have to do this once. You don't have to do it every time you print then cut. You only have to do it one time, and then your machine is calibrated to your printer. Now, if something happens and your machine gets bumped, or for some reason your printer, something's going on where it's not cutting correctly in Print Then Cut, you can go back and recalibrate if needed. Or like I said, if you happen to buy a new printer, you do have to calibrate again. But you should only have to do this once, and then whenever you do Print Then Cut again, you're going to have it all ready to go. Okay? A couple of other things to know about Print Then Cut. When you hit Make It, you are going to see that rectangle line. Like I said, that is not your cut line. Those are your registration marks that your machine is reading. Okay? When you go to hit, oh, I'm going to have to get rid of that little cloud because I don't want to buy him. When you hit Continue, it'll say Send to Printer. The bleed option is always toggled. Okay, that's just an automatic thing. What bleed is a small border around each of the images that allows for the cutting to be more precise. Okay, it is recommended that you always have that bleed on for the best cutting results. But if you don't turn on the bleed, sometimes you end up with kind of a fuzzier image, or the along the edges. It looks a little broken. Okay, so you always want to make sure that the bleed is on, but you do have that option to shut it off. The Use System dialog, I've never used it. What this does, it actually opens your printer system box to print. So for me, I leave it off because I can just hit print. It automatically sends it to my printer. There are some older printers that don't quite work with Cricut. So you do have to use that system dialog box. And when you hit print, it'll pop open your printer box. You know, here, we'll just do it real quick. It'll pop open my print dialog box. And I don't know if it'll do it with my printer because I've never done this. But some of the older printers do require it. There it goes. So you can see it just opened my system printer dialog box, where then I'm talking to the printer through this separate little application that's designed by my printer. Okay. And then I'll print from here. I don't ever have to do that. I have a newer printer. But like I said, with some of the older printers, you do have to use that little system dialog box. Okay. The maximum size you can print then cut is 9¼ inches by 6.75 inches, 6 3/4. You cannot cut larger than that. The default material is always 8.5 by 11. Okay, so it just assumes all the time that you're going to print on an 8.5 by 11 page. So it will not let you cut longer than 9¼ and it won't let you cut wider than 6 3/4. Okay. So just know that if you're making a Print Then Cut image, it can't be bigger than that. You also cannot print then cut on reflective materials, colored materials, or materials with a pattern. The Explorer machine, the cut sensors can only read white cardstock. So you have to, you can only print on white, or white paper, white cardstock, white sticker paper. It has to be white or very, very, very pale. Okay. The Maker can print then cut on light to medium shade. So its little cut sensors on the machine actually can cut on, or can read it on lighter to medium colored materials. Okay. You do have to do Print Then Cut in one session in one browser. Okay, you can always save your project and come back to it. It'll let you do that. But if you go to switch browsers, or you switch computers in the middle of printing, or if you try to save it as a PDF and then you try to come back, it's actually, the sensor marks are going to be all a mess. So if you plan on Print Then Cut, just keep it open in one browser on one machine, do it all at once, save it, you know, that kind of thing. Don't try to do it all in some different browsers or different sessions, that kind of thing. Okay. All right. If you're using an iOS device, you need to make sure you have the AirPrint capability. Okay. Cut then print is not available in Android. All right. So this jar is, I believe it's a 3-inch jar. Okay. So you're going to be designing to match the jar that you're using. Okay. So this is like a 3-inch lid, 3 inches around. So when you're designing the border, you need to know the measurement around your jar. When you're designing the little rosette, you're going to need to know how big your lid is. All right. So just know that the measurements I'm giving you today are for this 3-inch jar. Okay. I can't remember the exact measurements of it, but I just know it's 3 inches around and a 3-inch lid. Okay, so those are the instructions I'm giving you today when I give you the measurements. If you end up getting a different jar, you might have to make some adjustments. Okay. So we're going to start by inserting a border, and that is that little black lace piece that goes, or actually, no, we're starting with the rosette. Sorry. Under images, you can actually type rosette if you would like. And there's actually quite a few little rosettes that are available in Design Space. So you can see all these pretty little rosettes. Okay. I am going to be using the image from the Artiste collection. And in Artiste, it's actually called a border. So I'm going to go to my image sets. I'm going to click in Artiste. And I did put the little image number there for you. Just remember, you need to add the little hashtag or # before it. I'm just going to type in border. And all of the images in Artiste that say border and have these tiny little lines in them, these are all rosettes. Okay. So let me scroll down. That's actually just a border. Here's another one that's a rosette. So you can see it has all those little score lines. These are all rosettes. They have the little score lines in them. All right. So in Artiste, they're called border, but they are the rosettes. Okay. I used M3B567. And it has these cute little designs on it. And I'm going to go ahead and insert that into my canvas. Now, when you are sizing rosettes, we're going to have to remember a little bit of your geometry that you learned. You're going to make the height of your rosette the same measurement as the radius on whatever you're putting the rosette on. Okay, so who remembers what radius is? You guys are like, no. So a radius is half the distance. Okay, so if you're in the center of your little lid, your radius is half that. Okay, so if we were to measure all the way across, we want half that measurement, and that's going to be the height of our rosette. Okay, so since I have a 3-inch lid, then my rosette needs to be 1.5 inches high. And I'm not going to unlock it. I'm just going to type in the height as 1.5. You always need 2 rosette pieces to make a rosette. And I'll show you how these go together really easily in next week. But you always need 2 to make a rosette. All right. So I know that this rosette's going to be big enough because it's 1.5 inches high. I don't really need to worry about the width at all. It ends up all figuring itself out as long as I know the height. Okay. And the height is always the radius of whatever you're putting your rosette on. Or if you know you want a 3-inch rosette, then you're going to make your image 1.5 inches. Okay. All right. The other thing you always need when you do a rosette is a little circle. You're going to need a circle on the top and a circle on the bottom, because that's kind of what helps hold your rosette together. Okay. So I'm just going to go over to my shapes, and I'm going to pop in 2 circles. And I always make these circles the same height as my rosette. It is only going to cover half the rosette. It's not going to cover the whole rosette. Okay. I don't know. How many of you have ever made rosettes before? Or is that something that you've kind of went, no. Next week. Okay. But you do need a circle, and my circle is 1.5 inches, and I need 2 of those. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that circle so that I have 1 for the front of the rosette and 1 for the back. Okay. All right. So I have my circle. I have my rosette pieces. Now I just need to change their color so that they're all the same color that I'm going to be making my rosette with. And last week we talked that it's very hard to change the color when it's attached. If I click on that attached image, it is not going to allow me to change the color because it doesn't know what I'm changing the color on, because it's actually thinking these are 2 images. All right. So I just go over to the layers panel and I click on the actual image, and now it will allow me to change the color. And I'm just going to make it pink. And then I'm going to make my circles the exact same color, because that way they blend into the little rosettes. Okay. Now we're going to insert a tag shape. So I'm going to go back to my Artiste, and it just opens right up because that's the last thing I searched. I'm just going to type in tag, and you can use whatever tag you want. I put the little tag image number there for you, but there's a couple of different ones. There's all kinds of fun little tags on this collection. Okay, I think this was the one that I used. Yep. All right, so the nice thing about tags, you can make them longer or wider. Just know that if you really start stretching them out, that little circle in the center is going to get a little bit funky on you. But I'm going to show you here how to fix that. Okay, so let's just say that I really want this to be a short little chunky tag. Okay, I love the little shape of the scallops on the top, but I want it to be really long and really chunky. You can see right here that that circle now is getting a little bit weird on you. Okay, and you can leave it as is. You're welcome to do that. But if you're a bit of a perfectionist and you want a perfect circle, you can go ahead and hit contour. You can get rid of the circle, and you can either then use a hole punch, or you can go in and insert another tiny little circle, and then attach that circle to the tag so that now you have the perfect little circle. So I'm going to go back and repeat that. So this is the original tag image. You can unlock that tag image and either type in the size, or you can use your little sizing bar and adjust it to whatever you want. But as you're stretching it, that little circle will get a little bit wonky. So if you don't want the wonky circle, you can use your contour key. And we talked about this last week or the week before. You can get rid of the circle cut. And then you can insert a shape, another circle. You can place that on the tag, and you can use your align if you want to make sure it's nice and straight. You can do your center vertically to make sure, you know, oh, not center vertically, whoops. Center horizontally, sorry. You can do center horizontally to make sure that it's nice and centered, and then you can attach those two together so that you have a nice round circle, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back. So that was just a little quick trick when you're using tags and when you want to make adjustments to them. This tag, we're just going to size to 1.75 wide by 3 inches high. That's what matched well for the top of my jar. So I'm just going to go up to the size in the edit bar. I'm going to click the lock icon to unlock it. And then I'm just going to change the width to 1.75. I'm going to hit my enter key, and then I'm going to go to the height and type in a 3, hit my enter key, and you can see I didn't make a whole lot of adjustments, so that circle's just fine. I don't need to worry about that, okay? I'm going to change this to white, and we are just going to leave it as is. If you are not wanting to do the print then cut, you can just cut out this tag and put a stamped image, or you can write on it. All right. Now we're going to pop in a border. So I'm going to go back to my images. I'm going to go to the Artiste collection, and I'm actually just going to type in the number that I use, M38EFE. Make sure you add that pound or hashtag sign. And here is that border. All right, it comes in pretty large. I want it to be 1 inches high. That's how big I want this border. I have a YouTube video, and then we also covered this in the borders lesson. So if you go back to the units and you look up the borders lesson, we talked about how to resize your borders so they don't end up really wonky. So I'm not going to cover this a whole lot because we've done this like 2 or 3 times. Just know that I want this border to be 11.5 inches wide. So if I were to type 11.5, I'm going to end up with a border that's not 1 inches high. And if I tried to unlock it and typed in 1 inch, my border is a bit wonky. It's not going to have the same look that the border should have. Okay, so we talked about stretching and stuff in that border lesson, but tonight what I'm going to do is I'm just going to weld 2 of them together so that I can get the size border that I need. So I'm just going to take this border and duplicate it, and I'm just going to pop them in side by side. And I usually try to make the way, if you look over between these 2 scallops, you can see kind of how they attach them together. So I'm just going to kind of place them next to each other. And I'm going to select both borders. I'm going to align bottom so that I know that they're nice and straight. And then I weld the 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. Like I said, the borders lesson that I taught, I also have it on YouTube in my Cricut. I have an entire playlist that's just Cricut tutorials. But I talk about how to bring in different borders from different collections and how you slice or weld to make that border fit your project. Okay. Like I said, we covered this in, I think, 2 lessons. And like I said, there's also a YouTube video. For this one tonight, we're just welding. It's really easy to weld this one. Sometimes you do have to slice them. Sometimes you kind of have to manipulate them a little bit. But I chose an easy border tonight, so all we had to do was weld. All right. Now, if you take a look at it, it is now the width of 12 inches, okay? I cannot cut anything larger than 11 and a half. So I'm gonna unlock it. I'm gonna type 11.5, and now it doesn't really stretch it or change it too much. So I don't need to worry about anything else at this point. I now have an 11.5 by 1 inch border. It looks really nice. It doesn't look nothing stretched, nothing looks strange. And so it's good as is. Okay. I'm going to change the color. This one is actually going to be, I think this is on some black paper. So I'm going to change that to a gray color. I used a patterned paper for mine. All right. Let me tell you what we're going to do so that you are able to kind of think this through. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and insert this little piece of paper. Simply, I'm just going to insert a rectangle shape just to help me with the sizing of the label and the hearts. Whenever I have strips of paper like this, I usually just end up cutting them with my paper cutter. I don't cut them out with my Cricut, but I do often put in a little template so that I can size things correctly. If you want to cut it out with your Cricut, you can, but just know that the rectangle that I am inserting right now into Design Space is simply to help me with the sizing and the placement of this. I am not actually going to cut it out with my Cricut. You can make that choice, okay? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move this border down. I am a very visual person. I need to see how all of this is going to look together. Okay, the shape that, or the strip of paper that I'm going to be cutting is 1.7 inches high by 11.5 wide. So this little pink piece of paper is going to be cut out of patterned paper. I'm going to make it actually a lighter color of pink so it's easier to see. Like I said, I'm not going to actually cut it with my Cricut. I'm just kind of popping this in because it's going to help me with the placement and the sizing of the hearts and the label we're putting in. And this is just simply because I'm super visual. I have to see how it's all going to look. You may look at your jar and go, oh, I know I need a 4-inch label. But if you're very visual like me, it helps to pop in a little, basically it's like a little template we're putting in right now. I'm going to go to my images. Again, I'm using an image from the Artiste collection. It is a label. It's what they're titled as. So if you're looking for a shape like I used, you're going to want to search for label, or badge is another one that you'll sometimes see. There's all kinds of labels. The Artiste collection is one that I use a lot for home decor. There's just some great shapes in there. If you're an Access member, you can use these images free. Just remember that once you unsubscribe from Access, you're going to have to go back and buy them. If you decide to buy Artiste, I just ask you that you do it through my link, and that way I get credit. If you do it through Design Space, I don't get credit for any of your purchases. All right, so this is the one that I am using. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that. And I'm going to make this a really, really pale gray. It's going to be cut on it's this gridded paper from our Valentine collection. And I'm going to have it be 1.75 high. All right. So like I said, this is simply because I want to see what it's going to look like visually. I'm a super visual person. So I have to lay everything out. Okay. Now, if you want on mine, I created a second layer. So you can see here is that lined paper, and then behind it is a pink layer. So if you want to create that pink layer, all you have to do is duplicate this label, and then literally, I mean, I eyeball. I literally just kind of drag it and make it a little bit bigger, place this label over it, and go, yep, that looks good. Okay. If it needs, lengthened or made a little wider, you can hit the unlock icon, drag it down, drag it in. You just keep messing with it until it matches your label. Now, some people I know some ladies who work with the Cricut. Let's see, let me go back and make it its original size. Since it's 1.75 inches high, I know some people that will just put in 2 inches to make it exactly 1/4 inch larger. And that works too. You're welcome to do that. Sometimes that's just a little bit too big for me of a border. So that's why usually I just eyeball and make it so that I have the border that I like. I like a thinner border. I don't like the real thick. So you decide how much bigger you want that second layer. All right. So if you were messing around, you might have to make some adjustments. You're going to have to change your style back to regular. Make sure your fill says no fill, because it's going to think you still want to print then cut your text. And then you can just make these as big, or as if you want to make them bold so they're a little bit thicker. That's what I did, because these letters cut out a little bit thin and they're going to be really small for the front of this. So you can make them bold if you would like. You can unlock it and make them a little bit longer if you would like, so that it fills in more of your label. You can change it to whatever color that you're going to cut your letters out of. This one is kind of more up to interpretation and up to specification that you like. Okay. There's some of these things, like I said, I like to just give you free rein on. All right. So I made mine bold because the regular is a bit on the thin side. So I made mine bold. I also unlocked it and I made it a little bit taller so that it filled the label a little bit more. And then mine's being cut out of red cardstock. All right, so at this point, we're just going to add a couple of little hearts. So I just added in heart shapes. You're welcome to go to your images and look for a fancy little heart. There's all kinds of them in the Artiste collection. I just did regular old heart shapes, and I cut one out of really black patterned paper. And I cut one out of some red patterned paper. And then you just decide kind of what you want as far as the sizes that you want layered. And I'll bring my jar back in real quick so you can see how mine are sized compared to the label. So you can see here, oops, sorry. Okay, so mine kind of pop out behind that label a little bit. They are a little bit bigger. And the little black, this little tiny pink heart and the little black heart right here, those are actually shaker hearts. So these are little acrylic or little, yeah, they're like little acrylic shaker shapes. So I did not cut those, the little pink heart and the little black heart out of my Cricut. Those are actually little shaker shapes. Okay, so that'll help you kind of decide what size heart you want. All right, so at this point, we're going to save our project. Okay. And we're going to move on to the print, then cut. All right. So if you do not want to do print, then cut, it's okay. So because I'm only going to work with the tag, I'm going to hide all the other images just so they're out of the way. So I'm going to click the little eyeballs in the layers panel, and I'm going to turn all these into hidden images. All right, they aren't deleted. They are still in my project. They just aren't going to be on my canvas, and they're not going to cut. All right, because they're all hidden. All right. I'm going to zoom in just because it's going to be easier to see my tag. And I'm going to rotate it so that now the tag is horizontal. And we talked about rotating. You can either use the little rotation icon and rotate it, and you decide which direction you want your tag to go, or you can type it up at the top. So I'm going to type in 270, and that's going to turn my tag horizontally so that the hole is over there on the left. All right. So I'm going to insert some text. And it says, my favorite place, and I'm going to hit the return key to do a new line, is inside your, and I'm going to hit the return key to do a new line, hugs, or hug, and then an exclamation mark. And right now it's super big because I'm super zoomed in. Okay. So right now I have a single image of text. We've done this with text before. I'm going to ungroup two lines so that I can work with each individual line of text. So I'm going to go up to advanced, and I'm going to hit ungroup to lines. And now I can just change the text or the font on each one of the lines. Okay. So I used, the two fonts that I used were Bumblebee and Farmhouse Country. I put those links on the site. So Farmhouse is just like this scripty text, and Bumblebee is just this fun little, I don't know, kind of fun little writing text. So I've got the words, my favorite place is going to be the Bumblebee. The inside your heart is going to be the Bumblebee. And the hug is going to be Farmhouse. And I actually want this to be capitalized. So I'm just going to double click it. It's going to open the text box for me again. And I'm going to make those all caps. And you can see right now, my font style is still bold because that was the last It always defaults to the last thing that you used in font. So if that's too thick for you, you can go ahead and change that to regular. All right. Now, a couple of tips when you're working with individual lines of text. Right now, my letters to me feel like they're a little bit too far apart on this line. So I'm actually going to go up to letter space and I'm just going to make those a little bit closer. Well, I want to make sure that the second line that's the same font matches the top line. So I'm going to look and my letter space is 0.9. So I'm going to click on the second line and just type in 0.9 so that my letter space matches the top letter space. Okay. You also might want to do that with the height. So we're going to just bring this up to the tag here. I'm going to start placing it on the tag. And I've decided that I really want this to fill out the tag a little bit more. So I'm going to change the height on the text, just like we did with the word hugs on the label. I'm just going to unlock it and I'm going to drag it so that it gives me a little bit longer text to fill in the tag. Well, I want to make sure that this second line is going to match that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this up and I'm going to shorten it a little bit so it fits. And then I'm going to look at this and it says that my height up here is 0.457. So I'm going to click on that second line of text and I'm going to unlock and then put in 0.457 so that now the height for both those lines of text are the same. Okay. This for me is just more of like my OCD kicking in. Because I just want to make sure that those two lines of text look the same. All right. And you only have to do that if you're really just playing and manipulating that text and messing around with it. All right. So the hug, you can choose to leave it as is. You can choose to bring the letter space in closer. You can ungroup to letters, and you could make that H really, really big. And, you can manipulate this however you need to make it work for you for the tag. Okay. So I'm going to give you a few minutes because sometimes the text, finding a font and figuring out what text you want and your placement, that sometimes takes a little bit of time. So I'm just going to let you kind of play with this to get the look that you want. And the first time I did this, it took me longer. So that's why I know that you probably need a little bit of time to try to get that all in. Go ahead and comment if you still need a little bit of time to figure out your fonts, to get everything lined up. If you really want to download Farmhouse Country, like I said, the link to it I did put on the website, so you can download it and load it. If you're not sure how to load fonts into Cricut Design Space in the units, there is a lesson solely dedicated to getting your fonts in Design Space together. All right, so at this point, if we take a look over in our layers panel, the exclamation mark is going to be cut out. The G is going to be cut out. The U is going to be cut out. The H is going to be cut out. Okay. So if I hit make it, you're going to see the tags cut out and then all those letters are being cut out. And that is not the look we want. All right. So like I said, all of these are individual cuts. We actually want that font to print onto our tag, and then we only want the tag to cut out. All right. remember how we talked that you have two options for print and cut. You can choose to go up to the fill and choose print, okay? Or you can go down and hit flatten. Now, if I select all of this and I change my fill, well, I have to do individual images, sorry. If I change all of my fill to print on each one of these individual images, let me go back. And then the tag, you can see now it says next to the text, it says that the exclamation mark is a cut and print. BG is a cut then print, the T, the U, okay? So you can see what's happening here. So when I go to hit make it, isn't this beautiful? It's going to try to cut out all these little parts and pieces, all right? And that's not what we want either. Now, the other mistake, and this was a mistake I made the very first time that I did print and cut. I thought, oh, well, if I just group all of this together, okay, and then I go up and hit print, it'll automatically just turn it into a print and cut, all right? Once again, then, if we hit make it, you're going to see that it's kind of a little bit wonky, okay? Let me go in. But what it would try to do is it would try to cut out the H, the U, the I, and we don't want that either, okay? Because in the layers panel, you can still see hug, it's cutting, and it's printing hug. This text, it's cutting, and it's printing that text. This line of text, it's cutting, and it's printing this line of text. The tag, it's cutting and the printing. The only thing we want to cut and print is the entire tag itself with the writing on it, okay? So I'm not going to want to use that fill feature here, all right? That fill feature only works, honestly, if you just have one-dimensional items, or if you want to add a pattern, and we'll do that in another lesson. Okay, when you have multiple layers in your project, you're actually going to want to use the flatten feature. So I'm going to select all the items and I'm going to go down to the lower right-hand corner and I'm going to click flatten. This turns the entire piece into a cut then print image. So now when I take a look over in the layers panel, you can see that it's both cut and print. All right. Like I said, I may do like a quick supplemental video just so I can show you the difference of what happened, or I'll have it for you next week. But that there is a difference between, and I tell you this because I've made the mistake multiple times. There's a difference between just turning your fill into print versus just flattening the image. You always just want to use flatten if you have a multi-layered image. So a lot of text, a lot of little cutouts. You just want to use that flatten feature. So now when I hit make it, it's going to print all of those pieces of text onto my white cardstock. You're also going to see this little registration mark around your image, and that is not where it's going to cut, okay? Those are for the actual cut sensors on your machine. That's why it didn't work a minute ago, because there were no cut sensors. It couldn't read the cut sensors. But those little black lines are just cut sensors. It will cut out the tag, okay? So it's kind of hard to see because it's on a white surface, if I had, let me go in, I'm going to actually change the color of my tag so you can see this better. So let me go in and I'm going to hit flatten again. And now you can see it's got that nice little tag shape. I'm going to hit make it. And now you can see the tag a little bit better. So you can see that it's going to print all of those lovely letters, and it's going to be cutting around that gray tag, and it's even cut out the little circle for us. Okay. So when you go to hit make it, it's going to ask you to send it to the printer first. So you can go ahead and send it to the printer, and then it will walk you through the cutting just like your regular projects. All right. So really simple, really easy. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and bring back all the other parts and pieces. You go to make it. Make sure you have the right machine selected. If you own more than one machine, you make sure your project's saved. When you go to hit make it, you got to check and make sure that your material colors and everything, your material sizes are all correct. And always check that you have all the tools that you need. Okay. I hope that you're able to get everything cut out and printed for your little jars. We'll put these together next week. So hope you guys are doing great. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying healthy. And I can't wait to see what you guys create next with your Cricut machines. You guys have a great weekend.